Tonight is 25th Safar 1439. We're reading from the book Kitab Tawheed and the commentary by Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, under the chapter 38, titled Whoever obeys the scholars and rulers to prohibit what Allah has permitted or allow what Allah has prohibited has made them lords. And hadith in the English, volume 2, page 163. Adi bin Hatim radiallahu anhu said, I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam reading this verse, which translate as the Jews and the Christians took their rabbis and their monks to be their lords besides Allah. So I said to him, we do not worship them. Thereupon he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do they not forbid what Allah permits and you forbid it? And they allow what Allah forbids and you allow it? I answered, yes. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam then said, that is worshipping them. Reported by Ahmad and Tirmidhi, who graded it Hasan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The chapter title, من أطاع العلماء والأمراء في تحريم ما أحل الله أو تحليل ما حرمه فقد اتخذهم أربابا. That is the person who does obey the scholars and the leaders in what they make haram halal or halal haram, whether they make the haram halal or they make the halal haram, then he has taken them as to be gods. The author had brought 3 texts. He started with Ibn Abbas, the second one Imam Ahmad, the third one the hadith of Adi ibn Hatim, in which we have said that the author wanted from this chapter is that to show obedience is to be a type of worship. So the person, when he obeys someone in the disobedience of Allah, then he had worshipped him. If this person accepts the saying of a person and he knows that that saying is by opposing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's commands, then it is a type of worship. It's like he's taking them as God. But if he had taken their orders to obey Allah, then he has obeyed Allah. Meaning, if you obeyed someone when he's commanding you to obey Allah Azza wa Jal, then this is like obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is only when you obey the person, whether he's a scholar or a leader, that is wholeheartedly, you obey him when he makes something which is against the deen, something against Allah or his messenger. Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There is no obedience to any person if he asks you to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means there is obedience to some people. Because he says there is no obedience to any person if he asks you to disobey Allah Azza wa Jalla. So if he asks you and commands you to obey Allah, then there is obedience for him. So the obedience that is the author is talking about is the obedience when you obey someone when he's asking you to go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, this is going to be talked about in thorough with this hadith, is that the obedience if you've been compelled to do it or you thought it is no problem. We're going to talk about that inshallah in details in a minute. So from this chapter, and this is the last hadith, the author wanted to show us that the Tawheed commands you to make sure that when you obey someone, you obey him in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is, al-ta'atu fil haqq, obedience in haqq is worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obedience in falsehood is an obedience to other than Allah azza wa jal. The hadith Adi ibn Hatim al-Tai. Adi is the son of the well-known person who is a generous man called Hatim al-Tai, person who had died upon kufr. And the Prophet ﷺ was asked by Adi himself that if his generosity would benefit him. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, verily, he never said one day in his life, O Lord, forgive my sins. So all that generosity of his will not help him on the day of resurrection. It will be in vain. So any person who has done something good in his kufr and he stayed as a kafir, then nothing of his deeds will be accepted, because the shirk al-akbar, the major shirk, will invalidate all your deeds, whereas the shirk al-asghar will invalidate the deed itself. So if the person committed or did something good while he was a kafir, and then he embraced Islam, like the Prophet ﷺ, he said to Hatim ibn Hizam, Aslamta ala ma qad aslaft. You have embraced Islam on whatever good that you have been doing when you were a kafir. So that means you're going to carry the rewards, even though that you've done them when a kafir, but because you embrace Islam, that would be carrying on. So the Hatim al-Tai, if he had to embrace Islam, all his generosity would be counted for him, even though he did it when he's a kafir. But because he disbelieved and he stayed in a disbelief status, all the reward that he will get is only in the dunya, that people mentioning him as to be the most generous person. We say Karamu Hatim, the generosity of Hatim. That means well known in the history. That's his reward. But in the akhirah, he'll get nothing. Adi, he heard the Prophet ﷺ saying, and he comes from the Christianity background. He heard the Prophet ﷺ reciting the following verse: اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. They have taken, those Christians and the Jews, Christians and the Jews, their priests and their rabbis. The rabbis are the learned people. The priests, the worshippers. Usually they have no knowledge. They have taken them God beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also Al-Masih, the Messiah, the son of Maryam. Now, we know for the fact that only the Christians worshipped Isa, not the Jews. The Jews had claimed they killed him. They even believed that he was a liar. And they casted him to be a Satan. And they casted him to be a devil. That's why they have allegedly crucified him, but they did not. For verily, the Christians who are the ones who had worshipped Isa alayhi salam. But this is an ayah that talks about the beginning from the Christian and the Jews, and that they have worshipped them. And then also it specifies the Christians by worshipping the Messiah Isa, son of Maryam, and no problem about that. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا إِلَهًا وَاحِدًا. And they were commanded to worship none except for one ilah. Ilah is the one that you're supposed to worship, and there is no worthy of worship except for Allah alone. La ilaha illahu. There is no God worthy of worship except for Him. Subhana. Glorified be He is above all that associate anything in His worship. Amma yushrikun. Subhana. Glorified be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they associate anything in His worship. Here the word amma yushrikun, it actually glorifies Allah in two ways. That is, glorifies Him, that is from the mushrikeen shirk, that means their shirk, their shirk act, and also absolves Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from whatever the thing that they associate with Him. So whatever the shirk itself, for example, they are worshipping, let's say, the priest and the rabbi, so Allah's above that, exalted. And also whatever they are doing in the process of doing it, which is the obedience to theirs. So they are, Allah is above all those rabbis and above that shirk that they commit when they worship and when they follow the rabbis, when they make halal haram and haram halal. Adi ibn Hatim, upon hearing this, he said, "Inna lansna na'buduhum." We don't worship them. He believes that worship is only merely prostrating and bowing and vowing and slaughtering. So he said, we don't do that to them. We don't really bow to them. We don't prostrate to them. And that is, of course, for the rabbis and also for the priests. As for Isa alayhi salam, they used to worship him. As for Isa alayhi salam, they used to worship him. But here, Adi ibn Hatim, he had said to the Prophet of Allah regarding the priest, we never worship them. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, verily, the worship that you're talking about, which is a partial one, that is humility in bowing and prostrating, but we're talking about here something else. That is, you follow them when they make it haram halal, halal haram. So you said, alaysa yuharrimuna ma Allah. Don't they make what Allah made lawful to be unlawful? Don't they make what Allah made unlawful to be lawful, and what Allah made lawful to be what? Unlawful. And he started by saying that don't they make what Allah made what? Lawful to be unlawful. And this is greater in sin, in the sight of Allah, to make the halal haram, the lawful, what Allah made lawful, to make it unlawful. This is even greater in sin than making something which is unlawful to make it lawful. And actually, in the minds of so many people, it's the opposite. That you're making, for example, something which is unlawful to be lawful, that is greater in sin. That is, like for example, unlawful to make zina. So you make it lawful. That's worse of, for example, making banana, for example, which is lawful to be haram. That's what the people think. But it's actually the opposite. Making something that Allah made halal to be haram, that's what the Prophet ﷺ had started. The Almighty started with this. ولا تقولوا لما تصف ألسنتكم الكذب هذا حلال وهذا حرام لتفتروا على الله الكذب. Allah says in Surah An-Nahl, verse 116, that is, do not say what your tongue describes, which is falsehood in its origin. It's haram. It's not really correct to say that this is halal and this is haram. You're making fatwa with no knowledge, so you're forging a lie against Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning against such a thing. So when he said, yes, we do follow him. We do follow the rabbis and the priests when they make haram halal and halal haram. So he said, this is the worship that the Allah talking about, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he said, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. In this hadith we gain the following thing. The number one, that obedience, or let's just before we go to let's go to the you could say the general benefit out of all this topic, or all of this you could say chapter, and after that we're going to talk about the ta'ah in itself. How does it become kufr and how it doesn't? And this is inshallah we're going to talk about al-hukmu bi ghayri ma anzal Allah. First of all, the chapter number one, it shows what Tawheed entails. It entails obedience, that is, it should be to Allah. If you obey someone in the disobedience of Allah, that's in itself is shirk. Number two, that obedience is from the type of worships. Number three, this is not the issues. This is what we gain. Number three, that the obedience in the haqq is a worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it's in the batil, it's a worship to other than Allah. Also we learn from these three texts that the author had brought, that is haram is not allowed to make taqleed. It's not allowed to blind follow. So blind following is not allowed to whether the scholars or the ones who are in leadership. So it's not allowed to make taqleed to the scholars. Number five, to make haram halal, halal haram is to be kufr. Because this is only for Allah. No one can make halal haram, haram halal except for Allah alone. Right. Also, ibadah is not merely ruku' and sujood, but and of course it's not also merely as well slaughtering and vowing, but actually following in batil is as well ibadah. Also, we learn from this that obeying the scholars and obeying the leaders, if they command you to do something which is not a sin, is compulsory. The opposite, this is. Obeying the scholars and obeying the leaders, if they ask you to do something which is not disobedience, it is compulsory. It's the opposite, which is haram. If they ask you to do something haram, you don't obey them. But if they ask you to do something halal, it's compulsory. If the saying of the scholar, this is another issue as well we gain, differs from the Prophet ﷺ, then we take the Prophet of Allah saying. As we gained it, if you remember, from Imam Ahmad, we talked about Sufyan al-Thawri. Can they people leave the saying of the Prophet of Allah to Sufyan al-Thawri's opinion? Also, we learn that the person who reaches the level of ijtihad is not supposed to make taqleed except if it is necessity. And thus we have learnt it also from the athar of Imam Ahmad. That the person who reaches the level of ijtihad, level of scholarship, is not supposed to make taqleed, following, copying, except if he is needed to do so. And if he does so, then he does it to the scholars whom he trusts. And also, what we learn, the person who does not know the isnad, if he does not know the isnad, he has to make taqleed. Because he doesn't know the isnad of the chain, he has to make taqleed. And when we have a correct isnad, then we have correct hadith. We have learned from that as well. So all of these benefits, we've gained them from this chapter. Now coming to the ta'ah and the following of the scholars and following of the leaders, is just like following, it's like following your leaders is it kufr akbar or kufr asghar? We call it al-hukmu bighayri ma anzal Allah. So al-hukmu bighayri ma anzal Allah is that we need to make sure that you understand it. And when I say that, I'm not trying to go and tell you that now to use my mechanism here to apply it on a certain scholar or a certain leader to say, oh, he is according to what we have learned, he's a kafir. For verily, this is to say that if this person does so and so, then he is a kafir. But not to apply this on a particular person. Because applying it a particular person, it needs to fulfill the conditions and remove the obstacles. The obstacles, I'll talk about them at the end of this, after this inshallah. What are the obstacles and what are the conditions for making takfir upon a person? And this is not for you, by the way, this is for the scholars. There are 7 cases in which the person makes a rule or a judgment with other than what Allah had revealed. 4 of them makes kufr, and 3 he is not a kafir. 4 of them is kufr, and 3 is not a kafir. Number 1, if he believes that the rule of Allah, or if he believes the rule of his, whatever he is ruling with, better than the rule of Allah, then he is a kafir. He doesn't have to judge, just his belief makes him what? Kafir. If he believes inside himself that the rule of the man-made law better than the laws of Allah, then he's a kafir. Secondly, if he believes man-made law equals to the laws of Allah, he's a kafir. Regardless whether he judges or he rules, it doesn't matter. Thirdly, if he believes Allah's law is better, but he believes he's got a choice, also he's a kafir. Fourth case, if he believes that the rules of Allah and the laws of Allah are better, but in this time, this era, it is not fit to use them, he's a kafir. So how many cases we got here? 4 cases which are to be kafir. So whether he rules or does not rule, beside the point. If he believes that, he's a kafir. Now we come to the three cases where he's not a kafir. And this is not just for a leader, for any person who rules by a certain laws. That is the fifth case. A person, he believes Allah's law is better, but he rules with other than the laws of Allah, out of mistake or out of ignorance. Out of mistake or out of ignorance. Now, if he does so, then we divide him into two categories. Either this person from Ahl al-Ijtihad, this Hakim, this ruler, he did it out of Ijtihad. This is knowledge arrived him to this conclusion. Then he is, even his mistake is what? Rewarded. Or he is not from Ahl al-Ijtihad, a person who is a layman. So we divide him into two categories. That is, did he ask people of knowledge? If he did, and he given the wrong answer, then the Prophet of Allah, he said, "Man uftiya bi futya ghayri thabtin, fa ithmuhu ala man afta." Who has been given a fatwa which is not right, then his sin will be burdened by the person who has given him that fatwa. So there's no sin upon him. Secondly, which is that he did not ask. He just ruled and he made a mistake. Then he had fallen short and he's a sinner. So I'll explain number 5 again. This person believes that the laws of Allah is better, but he rules with other than the laws of Allah. Why? Because of mistake or ignorance. We said either he is from the people of Ijtihad or he is not. He's from the people of Ijtihad, then the Prophet of Allah, he said, he who does a rule or a judgment out of Ijtihad, إذا اجتهد الحاكم, and he was correct, he will have double reward. If he's incorrect, he'll have what? One reward. So he's fluctuating between a reward and 2 rewards. No sin. But if he's not from the people of knowledge and he made these laws, he ruled and judged by other than the laws of Allah, then he's one of the two. He asked someone or he did not ask one. If he asked, and he asked whom he thought that is knowledgeable, yet that person gave him wrong answer, he does not burden the sin will be upon the person who had given him the answer. Second one, which is that he did not ask, he just gone ahead and ruled, then we say he's a sinner because he's falling short. Sixth category, he believes that the laws of Allah is better than the man-made law, but he rules by other than the laws of Allah because of fear. He's scared, and that is no sin upon him. Like, for example, he's going to be killed, going to be raped, something is going to happen to him, then there will be no sin upon him. And the example for that, Najashi, the king of Abyssinia, Ashama. This person, as Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, he said he never even prayed a prayer, single prayer. And he was ruling by other than the laws of Allah. He's ruling a Christian country. And he believed in Muhammad ﷺ to be the Prophet. And the Prophet of Allah, he offered the prayer upon him when he died. Yet he did not pray single prayer. He was not even buried in the Muslim cemetery. He was buried in the Christian cemetery. So An-Najashi is a good example for that. Seventh category, this is where the chaos takes place. He rules by other than the laws of Allah, and he believes that the laws of Allah is better, but because of whims and desire, hawa. Now he is a great sinner. He is doing kufr, but he's not a kafir. He's doing a kufr, but he's not a kafir. He's a great sinner. This is what Abdullah ibn Abbas, he says, kufrun duna kufr, fisqun duna fisq, dhulmun duna dhulm. It's not kufr below kufr. It's not the kufr that you go to, which is the extreme one, that is a kafir. So he does it doing a kufr, but he's not a kafir. So an example of that, he sees, is a judge, he sees two people, or he's a ruler, leader, and he rules in the favor of his relative against the person who is not his relative. Out of what? Out of whims and desire. So this whims and desire basically it makes him a great sinner, but he's not a kafir. Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi says, kufr al-amali, kufr al-amal, which is not kufr al-i'tiqad. The disbelief not in the heart, the disbelief which is to do with, we call it al-amali. Al-amal, that means that is by the limbs. It's nothing to do with the heart. He says, al-kufr al-amali, there is some of it that it will be straight away kufr, which is opposing the iman from all direction. Once you see this action, then it's a kufr, great major kufr. And straight away that person, if he had fallen into the conditions, which I'm going to mention later on, and removal of the obstacles, is a kafir. Like prostrating to an idol. So prostrate an idol. Or throwing the Quran into the toilet. Or killing the Prophet. Or mocking the Prophet. Or hating something from the deen or the Islam. Something that is, makes him as a proper kafir. So this is an action that would oppose the iman from all directions. Then he says there's an action which will not oppose the iman from all directions. And he gives an example, al-hukmu bighayri ma anzal Allah, to rule by other than the laws of Allah. He said this one, we cannot say it is a kufr against the iman from all direction until we verify that is it from category number 1, category number 2, category number 3, category number 4. Whereas when you see somebody prostrating to the idol, you don't make categories here. That's major kufr. He is a person who is insulting the Prophet of Allah. It's major kufr, out of Islam. But we have to implement the conditions that we're going to say the conditions in a minute, inshallah. Now, the conditions to make takfeer. When do we make takfeer upon a person? Number 1, we have to make sure that whatever he has said or done or left is kufr. So, it is confirmed that whatever he has done or he had said or he had left, because he left something, is to be kufr, will chuck you outside the fold of Islam. So it has to be confirmed. Or he's done all of that. He's said something and done something, and also he left something. Secondly, this person is aqil, sane. So the opposite of that, which is the obstacles, is insane. So if he's insane, we don't make takfeer upon him. Thirdly, baligh, which is adult. If he's not an adult, then it will not make him as a kafir. Adulthood is reached by either pubic hair, wet dream, 15 years completed lunar month. That means he completed 15 is up to the 16 Islamically. And then the girls, they add 1, that is menses. If one of them come out, then he's an adult or she's an adult. The 4th one, knowledge. He has to know what he's doing is what? Kufr. So it is being confirmed for us it is kufr, but does he know it is what? It is kufr. So the obstacle is that which will prevent us to make takfeer if he is ignorant. Ignorant. And remember with me that man who asked his children to what? Burn him. And put his ashes half in the land and half in the sea. What did he say? Why did you ask children to do that? So he said, after my death, do that for me, for verily I've done so many things that Allah is capable of bringing me back and punishing me. He will be punishing me such a punishment that he never punished anyone else before me like it. He said, capable. So he's doubting the what? Capability of Allah, which is what? Major kufr. So this is jahl, great jahl. He's a jahil. He didn't know that, and that's why Allah forgiven him at the end of the hadith. How many conditions we mentioned? 4. The 5th one is choice. He chose He's not being compelled. He's not under the gun point. Do this. Step on the Quran. Throw it. No, he chose that willingly. And number 6, yes? Intention. Deliberate. The opposite of it is not deliberate. So let's say, for example, he stepped on top of the Quran. He knows it's the Quran. And he knows stepping on the Quran is kufr. It will chuck you outside Islam. And maybe he threw it in the bin or threw it in the toilet. And he knows that. But actually he didn't do it what? He didn't do it what?
Intentionally.
Deliberately. He didn't do it deliberately. He wanted to throw maybe another book. And it had to be the Quran in his hand. So he didn't mean it. So it was not deliberate. He didn't mean. So he stepped on the Quran and he was trying to jump over it, but he stepped on it by accident. And finally, 7th one, that he's not making ta'wil. So it is kufr, clear kufr, but for him, he says it's no problem for that. Because he interpreted according to his understanding and according to his knowledge, that in that case it is not major kufr. We call it mu'awwil. Awwal. So he akhta. All these conditions, if they are there and the obstacles, the opposite of them, they're not there, then this person is a kafir. Please make sure that you understand these ones properly. And we go to the issues now. Fadal.
Important issues. First,
just before you go ahead, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, he brings that basically he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he says وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, and the other verse فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ, another verse فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. He who does rule by other than the laws of Allah, Allah says they are the kuffar, the other one says they are the evildoers, and then they are the fasiqun. He says it could be that these 3 descriptions for one person, which is a kafir, or each one is separate. So the person who does one of the 4 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, he is kafirun. And if he does other than that, then he's either fasiq and a zalim. And he says here the zalim is the one who does rule against the person because he hates him. That's zulm. And he's a fasiq, corrupted, if he rules for the favor of someone because he loves that person. Well, dhulm and fisq can be given to one person. So basically the person who judges in the favor of someone because he hates the other party or because he loves the one who judged for him is dhalim and a fasiq, inshallah. It's the same thing and no difference, inshallah. Tfadal.
Important issues. First, explanation of the verse in Surah An-Nur.
Surah An-Nur that we have mentioned, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, فَلْيَحْذَرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَن تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ أَوْ يُصِيبَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. Let those people who are opposing the command of the Prophet ﷺ be warned that they will be struck by a fitna that's in the dunya. It could be shirk, or they will be struck by a punishment from Allah Azza wa Jalla in the hereafter. We have mentioned as well Athar Imam Malik, yes? Yes? You have mentioned the Athar of Malik, yes? I have said my explanation 2 weeks ago. No? Imam Malik's Athar, when the person wanted to make ihram. Yes?
Yeah,
I have mentioned that, yes. It's because he used the same verse. Number 2.
And second explanation of the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah.
Surah Al-Baqarah?
Sorry, Bara'ah.
اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. They have taken the rabbis and the priests gods besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's as well explained. Number 3.
And third, pointing out the meaning of worship which Ali radiallahu anhu initially denied.
Because the initially he denied, he thought that it is going to be talking about ruku' and sujood. But actually to obey them in humility, that is a type of worship. Number 4.
4. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma his illustration with Abu Bakr, and Umar radiallahu anhuma and Ahmad's illustration with Sufyan.
So the Abdullah ibn Abbas, he told that man who said to him, you remember when he asked him, what do you say about the mut'ah, tamattu and the hajj? He says, well, the Prophet of Allah made tamattu. He said, well, Abu Bakr and Umar do not make tamattu. He said, I'm talking to you, the Prophet of Allah, and you bring me Abu Bakr and Umar. The sky's about to shower you with what? With stones. So he had used Abu Bakr and Umar, even though they are the best of people after the Prophets. And Ahmad, he had used Sufyan al-Thawri, the Imam from Iraq, the Zahid, the Ascetic. He used that person, that the people go to his opinion and they leave the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So how about those people who take even less than these people to be their guidance and to make them and their sayings to have a preference over the saying of the Prophet ﷺ? And I was giving you the athar of Shafi'i. I remember when he said to that person who asked him, what's your opinion when he said a hadith of the Prophet? What would you say, Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i? He said, did you see me coming out of the church? Did you see me having a belt inside over my waist? I say to you, Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah. The Prophet ﷺ said, and you're saying to me, what did I say? Na'am. And you've noticed here, 3 and 4 they should be swapped. 3 should be 4 and 4 should be 3.
Yeah.
In terms of
sequence.
In terms of sequence, it should be 3 and 4. I'll put it here, a note. 4 should be 3 and 3 should be 4, because Ibn Abbas and Imam Ahmad, their athar in the book, in the chapter, is before number 3. Do you understand that? Because Adi was the last one. Number 5.
The 5th, affairs becoming so worse to such an extent that to many worshipping the rabbis is the best worship, and it is called al-wilaya, the sainthood. The servitude of the rabbis was knowledge and understanding, and then circumstances changed to the extent that they were worshipped besides Allah, those who are not even amongst the pious. And they worshipped, in another sense, those among the ignorant.
I don't know if you understood that or not. Basically what it means, that the circumstances had changed. That the worshipping of the rabbis became one of the best of deeds. And this is definitely and no doubt is worse than opposing the saying of the Prophet ﷺ by the saying of Abu Bakr and Umar. So to worship the rabbis, to make it one of the good deeds, a'udhu billah. This is the circumstance that's been changed. Then he said that the circumstances also had changed, that the one who is worshipped beside Allah is not a rabbi. He's even nothing. Not even from the righteous people. He's not priest or rabbi. So they're worshipping people who doesn't deserve to be worshipped. They deserve to be criticized and put in the dustbin. Like those people who are poets for the sake of money. They praise kings and priests, kings and ministers who deserve nothing except for insultation. And they are not the same like Abu Bakr and Umar. So that person who made preference to Abu Bakr and Umar, much better than the person who's making somebody's what? Even worthless. Then he said, and they're being worshipped by the other meaning. By the other meaning, that means the ta'ah, which is the following of those scholars and the obedience of those scholars. And he's from the Jahilin. So this is the other one. So he has actually had followed them in making halal haram and making haram halal. And this is in the time of the author. How about our time here? Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen says, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said that not a single year would pass except for the following would be what? Worse, until you meet your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the people, they do not feel the amount of change that is taking place into their religion. Like we have said before, hadith of Hudayfa, يدرس الإسلام كما يدرس وش الثوب, that the Islam will be fading out, just like the pattern in the clothes would fade out. And that hadith, subhanallah, illustrates the Prophet ﷺ's miracle in giving words which have few in number, vast in meanings. the fading of the patterns of the clothes does not come to your attention until it's what? Really worn out. But day by day you don't see it. Unless you have a picture of your thobe when you bought it, and have a picture after 5-6 years, then you will see, oh my God, subhanallah, my thobe was really white and clean and now it's not really that white. But you haven't noticed that until you brought the what? The picture and you looked at it. And that's the fading out, slowly. So the deen for you now is fading out. You could see the change, but it's not going to be the same change of the Prophet of Allah to come alive and see the amount of change that has taken place. He would say that, I don't know anything about your religion except for the what? For the prayer. I don't know anything about your religion. That's what Aisha, she said. If the Prophet of Allah was to be sent back, he would not know anything from your prayer except for the what? The salah. That was at the time of the followers. Never mind the time of the what? Of the followers of the followers of the followers of the followers of the followers. God knows how many followers before the followers came before us. I'm talking about the Muslims changing. Those are the people like the Sufis who are understanding of Tawheed poor, worse than the understanding even of the kuffar at the time of the Prophet of Allah. The Muslims who are Sufis, their understanding of Tawheed is worse, is not correct, like the understanding of what? Of Abu Jahl and Umayy ibn Khalaf and Uqba ibn Mu'ayt. These people used to understand Tawheed more better than them. Because when they were asked, say La ilaha illallah, they never thought the Prophet of Allah is asking them, oh, Allah is the creator, Allah is the provider. They didn't know that. If it was the case, we said, yeah, okay, La ilaha illallah. But when he said to them, say La ilaha illallah, they said, no. أَجَعَلَ الْآلِهَةَ إِلَهَ وَاحِدًا إِنَّ هَذَا لَشَيْءٌ عُجَابٌ. Did he make all the gods to be one? So Tawheed means to worship Allah. It doesn't mean Allah is the creator, Allah is the provider. That's unity of lordship, which is most of the people believe in. When it comes to unity of worship, that's when the people differ. So all the prophets, when they were sent with what? Rububiyyah or uluhiyyah? So all of it, they were. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. We have sent in every nation a prophet commanding them to what? To say to them, Allah is the creator. That is to worship Allah and associate nothing in His worship. That's what is being sent to. They were sent for. And that is when Allah Azza wa Jalla asked and talked about the people of Quraysh. He said, وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ يَقُولُنَّ Allah. If you ask them who had created the heavens and earth, what would they say? Allah. They would say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they know. So why do they worship these things? وَمَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. We worship them nothing for nothing except to get us closer to Allah. Because they know that Allah is the real God. But these ones are intercessors. It's exactly like the Sufis these days. They do take their, Jilani and Badawi and Rifa'i, and to take them intercessor, they say we are unclean, dirty with sins. We need to have clean people to get us what? We cannot ask straight away. We have to ask with clean people. The same thing they used to be at the time of Quraysh. When they used to make Hajj, there was people called al-Hums. Hums means the devoted worshippers, the ones who makes Hajj properly. They don't even stand in Muzdalifah. They straight away go to Arafah. From Arafah to Mina. They don't stay in Muzdalifah. So these Hums are great worshippers basically. So whenever a person who is not from the Hums wants to make Hajj or Umrah, he has to make with the clothes of these people, because he thinks his clothes is dirty, making lots of sins, with clean clothes. So some of them they could afford to take it, some of them they couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford to buy it or to get it. So what do? They rotate nakedly. Nakedly, I'm saying nakedly totally, men and women. Everything hanging. And they rotate nakedly because they're saying it's haram to rotate with dirty clothes, sinned clothes. And that's why when the women used to rotate, she used to make poetry. اليوم يبدو بعضه أو كله. She's talking about her vagina. So now maybe some of it is showing, some of it is not showing. So she is rotating nakedly, even her private part showing while she was rotating. Subhanallah alladhi la ilaha illa. Why? Because of that they think they are dirty. So these people, they think they are dirty. We cannot go to Allah directly. We need to go through Jilani or Salih, like Al-Qadr al-Jilani, or like the Badawi, or like Al-Rifa'i and others. You have any questions before we go to chapter 39, please? Fadl.
So you gave us benefits after the hadith of Adi radiallahu anhu, and you gave 10. Can you kindly repeat?
Can't remember, can't give it 10. But I've been going through my notes here.
So, the first two, because I was looking into the wisdoms.
I said that I mentioned them twice. I said that the chapter was made by the author to show what the Tawheed entails. It entails that the Ta'ah is a ibadah. So it shows what the Tawheed entails. And also it shows that the Ta'ah, the obedience, is type of the types of worship. And also it shows that the Ta'ah in the Haqq, ibadah. The obedience in the haqq is ibadah. And the ta'ah in the batil is ibadah li ghayrillah. It's a worship to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you do ta'ah in the haqq, that's worshipping Allah. Ta'ah in the batil, that's worshipping other than Allah. And then we talked about the prohibition of making taqleed, blind following, and ta'assub. You know what ta'assub means? Like Hanafis. Prophet said, Ya akhi, Abu Hanifa knows, you know better than him. I don't know more than Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa is on top of my head. But Abu Hanifa is a human being. So we tell these people who are following Abu Hanifa, stay with Abu Hanifa, no problem. Because you're a layman, you don't understand. But we want you not to stick to the words of yours when you say Abu Hanifa is infallible. Or if you don't even say it, you're acting upon it. And that's why you're not willing to change. You're not willing to change. Unless it's against your whims and desires. Then you'll change. And I'll give you an example. This person came to me and he wanted me to make fatwa regarding his daughter. Regarding his son who had divorced his sister. I've never seen him in the masjid. I've never seen him. So, what is the case? So he said to me, I've divorced my son divorced his wife 3 times, and he written it, and he showed me the letter, 1, 2, 3. So anyway, I talked to the husband, and I said to him, "What did you do?" He said, "I was with my other female woman, and he's like his wife, or she's, I don't know what she is, and she wanted to." She wanted him to prove to her that he's not attached to that woman, that he's going to marry her, not to stay with that wife of his. So she said, "Okay, prove to me." So he said, "Okay, my wife is divorced," and written it on a piece of paper, but he doesn't mean it. Divorce, 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 3 times. And now he forgotten the piece of paper there. That woman took that piece of paper and she sent it by post to that wife of his. So the wife of his now, she's got the paper. And she's given a copy to the husband to keep the original. You divorced me 3 times. Now the problem is, I said, why didn't you go to the Imam? Because I know them, they are Brelwis. Your Imam, Brelwis are Hanafis. Even the Brelwis in the Aqidah, but in their madhab of fiqh, they are what? Hanafi. I know what the Imam, they said, of course. Jilani is known to us. His name Imam Jilani. So you know what he's going to say. And the one who's bringing them is their cousin, and their cousin is with us. So he said, I know that what he said. She is divorced totally. You cannot go back to her, isn't it? Because she said, divorce, divorce, divorce. That's it. 3 times. Hanafi, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad Hanbal, all of them, they say, if you divorce your wife like this, divorce, divorce, divorce. There's consensus amongst them that your wife is divorced completely. Ba'ina baynuna kubra. She's not allowed to go back to you until her husband, she marries somebody else, and her husband dies, or her husband divorces her. Not to marry her for the intention of bringing her back to the first husband. No. It's a new marriage. And then something happened to the new husband. Then she's allowed to go back to the what? The previous husband, the first husband. And of course, the Imam would not do that. I said, okay, his cousin is pleading with me, and he's saying, what can we do? I said, well, if he's willing to go to the haqq, and he's willing to listen, not just because of his whims and desire, there's no problem. I'll give him the fatwa, and I will write it for him, that for us, if we divorce even to the power 1,000, you know in maths, divorce to the power 1,000, that means divorce 1,000 times. Or to divorce to the power infinity. It's considered what? One divorce. Even though that you're joking. Like it's got now, you've written it. And it's a proof against you. So it is, khalas, you can't go back from it. So it's considered one divorce. But the problem is there was something else. She was pregnant at the time of the divorce, and she got a delivered baby in that time when that paper took place. So her iddah is what? She's finished, because when the iddah is the pregnancy. So she became what now? Stranger. She needs what? A new contract. So he lacked one bit of it, which is that he says not divorced completely, but he didn't like the bit of what?
New marriage.
The new marriage. And there was something to do with the date. He written it on a date, and the wife, she got it on a different date. I rule from the date that he written it. So he took it to another sheikh in Pakistan who had confirmed the fatwa regarding that one divorce, whims and desires. And he says, no, we will overrule that and we'll say that it's from the date that she received the paper. When she received the paper, she's already delivered the baby. So her iddah will be what? 3 months. Look at playing around with the deen. I didn't know that until later on, because I asked his cousin, well, they haven't come back to me. What happened to my fatwa? So he said to me, they took part of it, and the other part they took it from the Pakistani. I said, Allah al-Musta'an. This is whims and desire. So we tell these people who blindly follow Imam, no problem to blind follow, because you are a layman, you don't understand anything. But you have to understand at the same time, you cannot take your wordings of your Imam is to be infallible. So you're willing that to move from fatwa to another according to what Allah pleases, or to according to what pleases Allah, not according to what your whims and desire. And that's very important, because you become like taking Abu Hanifa as a god whenever he makes something like this. So when we ask them, what do you think about alcohol made from hops? You know, the beer. Hops. From barley and hops, you know, the beer, the normal beer. A'udhu billah haram. Abu Hanifa makes it halal. Abu Hanifa, for him, the beer, which is from the wheat, as long as it doesn't get you drunk, so 1 can, 2 cans, as long as you don't get drunk, is halal. They will not believe that. But this is what Abu Hanifa said, rahimahullah. And he said it not because he hates the deen. No, because he wants to save the deen. So that is why he did not make Nabid al-Kufa, the wine of al-Kufa, to be haram. Nabid al-Kufa is made from the dates. And the only Nabi that he makes it haram, whether it's little of it or too much of it, is the wine made from the grapes. Nothing else. So wine made from the dates, wine made from the figs, wine or beer made from the wheat, as long as it doesn't get you drunk, no problem. That's why Imam Ahmad, when he was in Iraq, every time he sits down to teach the people, he will go Kitab al-Ashriba, chapter, the drink. He pulls out from his big sleeve and said, Kitab al-Ashriba. And then he starts narrating the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Ma askara kathiruhu faqaliluhu haram. Whatever too much of it makes you drunk, then little bit of it what? Is haram. Kullu muskirin khamr wa kullu khamrin haram. Everything that intoxicates you is khamr, wine, and every wine is haram. Keeps repeating that until he wants to brainwash those people who are taken from Abu Hanifa's madhab. But the people, they don't know this madhab. They think it is impossible. Abu Hanifa, when he was asked, why do you make the nabidh al-kufa to be halal, as long as it doesn't get you drunk. He said, dare me to say it's haram, because I will make companions to be fasiq. Because according to his knowledge, the narrations say that lots of companions, they used to drink from the what? The wine which is made from what? From the dates. So if he makes it haram, he's making the companions to be what? Corrupted, for saq. Do you understand what I'm saying? But actually, the companions whom he had thought that they were drinking from the wine, most of the hadith and narrations were not authentic. And the one which is authentic, that is very little, and it's not for all the companions, because verily the time of the Prophet of Allah, those companions who was to be drinking. But even one of them, he was brought to the Prophet of Allah, and one of the companions said, Akhzakallah, may Allah disgrace you. He said, لا تكن لشيطان عونا على أخيك. Don't be a helper to the shaitan against your brother. إنه يحب الله ورسوله. For verily he loves Allah and his Messiah. Even he's drunk. Al-Walid ibn Uqba ibn Mu'ayt, he led the prayer of the Fajr, akhwani. He led the Fajr prayer at the time of Uthman ibn Affan. How many rak'ah? 4. He made it 4. And the companions prayed behind him 4. And then he looked at them, shall I give you another 2 rak'ah? He wanted to give another 2 rak'ah. Make it 6. He was drunk. And Uthman ibn Affan lashed him. Radiallahu anhu wardah. Al-Walid ibn Uqba ibn Mu'ayt. I'm not giving you here, oh, let me go and drink. Sahabi's drunk, let me drink as well. I'm just saying to you that the person is a sinner. Companions to make sin. And the best of the sinners are to be the what? Repents to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He lashed him 40 lashes. Al-Walid ibn Uqba ibn Mu'ayt. Radiallahu anhu wardah. Didn't Ma'iz ibn Malik fornicate? Wasn't he pelted by stones? Wasn't he? Wasn't he not? Hadith Sahih, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ma'iz ibn Malik. Al-Mar'a al-Juhayniyah. When she came as well, she was as well Zaniya. She fornicated. So that doesn't, Al-Mar'a al-Makhzumiyah, the one who stole it. And her hand what? Amputated. The companions, the sinners. So I'm just saying basically to you that those people who are fanatics, wrong. No problem to be Shafi'i, Hanbali, Maliki, because you are a layman, you don't understand. But if you are a person who can reach the knowledge of those people, and you could really, you are a student of knowledge, you could arbitrate, you could reconciliate, you could, all of that, you have to do that. You don't stick to one. You stick to the haqq. Qala Allah, qala Rasul. But you never ever put the knowledge of those scholars in the bin. A'udhu billah. Wallahi, without these scholars, we will never arrive to the haqq. I'm telling you, and I mean my word. These scholars are the means to reach the haqq. But they are not the target. They are what? Means. So the ones who are, for example, a follower of Abu Shafi'i or Abu Hanifa or Imam Malik, they make the knowledge of that scholar is the target. But the target is the knowledge of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We want to arrive what the Prophet of Allah said. And these scholars, they help us. Without them, I'm not going to understand. So no problem to understand the hadith according to the usul, to the basis and foundation of Imam Ahmad, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahumullah jami'an. Naam. Tfaddal.
Some of the Muslim countries have adopted riba in the West and the financial. Does that come under kufr and under number 5?
Some of the countries had adopted, Jazakallah khairan for that good question, Ya Abid. Very good question. Adopted rules and laws, for example, riba in the banks. Adopted that. Does that make it under kufr, the category of 1, 2, 3, 4? Or does it make it under one of those 5 or 6 and 7? Which we call it al-mubaddil. Al-mubaddil li shar'illah. The one who swaps. This is where the takfiri comes in. No, هذا بدل شرع الله. ليس ما حكم غير بنظر. He did not rule by the laws, but he had swapped the laws of Allah and he put other than the laws of Allah. He swapped them. First of all, the one who rules by the law of Allah, or he had swapped, he's the same. Because when you rule by other than the laws of Allah, you have swapped. That's number 1. Number 2, who can tell us that if a person swapped 50%, 30%, 60% of the laws of Allah, and he made it other than the laws of Allah, who can tell us that in his heart he's from category 1 or category 2 or category 3 and category 4? Let's repeat them. Category number 1, he believes Allah's law is less than the man-made law. I mean, manly law is better. Kafir, great kafir. Or he makes it what? Equal, secondly. Or thirdly, he believes Allah's law is better, but he's got a choice. Or he believes Allah's law is better, but the time now is not suitable. All of those what? Kuffar. How can I see that if that person who is a ruler had led into 50% of his rules is to be, or 60% or 80%, that he is one of these four categories? I can't. I don't know. هل شققت عن قلبي? Did you see what is his heart? I don't know. So, you could be seeing some of those leaders, they think, well, maybe the laws of Islam, okay, they are not within them the laws to do with the mu'amalat, because he had heard from such scholars, which are wrong, that the deen is to do with the ibadat. But if it's to do with the mu'amalat, transaction, it's no problem to use man-made law. That's where the riba comes in. Okay, but the riba is muharram, of course, in the Kitab and Sunnah. But I'm talking about other issues as well. So we say to that scholar or to that person who has done it, you're wrong. And Jazakallah khair for that question. So the deen is a total system. Enter in it, the deen, sharia, and the mu'amalat, the ahkam, all of that. Because it's a whole system. Without it, people will go chaos. Now, further.
You said for an adult, 15 completed lunar months, 15 years completed lunar months, is it?
Yes.
Or 16 years.
The one who gets puberty, he has to finish 15. That means he finished the 15. That means the 15 is up to 16. Lunar months mean, the 29 or 30 days, which is 254 days in a year. 354 in a year. It's about 12 to 10 days less than the solar system. Okay? So every 33 years from the solar system equals 34 from the lunar. You add 1 year. Okay? You add 1 year. Now. تفضل.
I was asking, with the ruling of the fatwa, I'm still new to the whole being, because I haven't studied it properly. I don't actually study it, I'm just, as I say, layman. But I've literally left my job, and I said, I've looked into halal jobs as I was looking for it. With for example, Uber drivers, I looked into if I could drive, and then is it legit, and then when I read more into it, I've found the fatwa that says you shouldn't be with a woman in the same car, so shaitan is the third person, and I stopped at that thought, let's not just go near it, as in that sense. Is that accurate to follow the fatwa? I didn't really look into the depths.
Right, Uber. Yeah. I don't know what's Uber. I've heard about it. I don't know what's the laws of Uber, but I thought you are in control of whom you could take and whom you don't take. I thought you're in control.
That's what I thought as well.
So, for example, you have a choice. Somebody told you, for example, go to the pub to bring some people who are drunk. I'll go do that, halal, to bring him home. But take someone from the house to the pub, I will not do it. It's haram. Take 2 women, no problem. 2 women is no problem. Take 1 woman, it's a problem. So you have to bring your own wife with you. She'll kill you, doesn't kill you, that's beside the point. You have to take somebody with you. Even you could take another man. But it has to be no khalwa. You are not on your own with her. And you can't trust yourself, regardless whom you are. You can't trust yourself. This is a man made to look at a woman. This is what we are. Men to look at women, women look at men. And our lust is much powerful than the female. The female, she would maybe she would not really even think that you are thinking like that. So they are definitely a good description that is they are sheep and we are the wolves. Okay? They are the sheep and the wolf. And the sheep, they never thought that the wolf is going to attack her. That's why she's miskina, the sheep. Same thing with the woman. Ghafilat. They think that these people, no, he's nice, he would not do such a thing. He doesn't know, she doesn't know that if he opens a little door for her, he's going to enter. Just a little door. إلا من رحم الله. نعم. تفضل. فأنكو. سلام عليكم. Fadal, uncle. By the way, uncle, we don't open the door. From now on, khalas, it's cold now. I'm just saying, we don't open the door, that's it. We're going to keep it closed because it's really cold. No.
On Iman channel, I heard a guy saying that
Yeah.
after Salatul Fajr, you can read Ayatul Kursi 3 times, and after Maghrib Salah, you can read Ayatul Kursi 3 times. I just want to check with you whether this is...
The Mufti. So he should not really even, he should be against that name, he should really clarify to the people, should not call me that name. Okay? So anyway, unfortunately, uncle, the people, the one who mesmerize people with words, most of them, they're not upon the haqq. Most of them. Very large number of them. The ones who are boring, most of them are the ones who are upon the haqq. Most of them. The ones who are boring. You know, see that? Knowledge, qala Allah. They're not really like the show. They put their hands like that and start talking like this. And you know, these are not the scholars. They don't do that. So basically, uncle, when the person speaks nicely, it doesn't mean that he is upon the haqq. And I'm not saying he's upon the batil, but most likely is not from the Ahl Sunnah. One of them, he is an Arab, and actually he's Jordanian. And he comes on I don't know the channel. وسيم شاب شبيب نظارات كذا يعمل فتوى في الامارات طول جنسيه ايوه عرفت الحين انت شباب, a young person who is not a student of knowledge, and he says I'm a student of knowledge, yet he refutes the scholars. He takes the mick out of the scholars. And with it looks, it's Salafi looks. So, and he's creating problems even between the Gulf countries. Allahul Musta'an. So those people, they are disaster for this ummah. Dangerous, uncle. So unfortunately, as I said, uncle, the channels which are correct, they are not famous. Once I know that Qanat al-Athar, Qanat al-Athar is where the Shaykh Salafi comes on. My Shaykh al-Halabi, Shaykh Mashhur, he comes on that. Qanat al-Athar is an Arab channel, not known to the people. So when I went to my brother and his wife, she's got the channels, I said, can you just please show me Qanat al-Athar? And you know, the TV's got, I don't know, the satellite, they've got about 500, 600, God knows how many channels. I'm talking the Arab channels. Can you show me the Qanat al-Athar? I want to see it. She said, what's Qanat al-Athar? That means they've been flicking through the channels, they know it. So if I told them, for example, BBC or something like this, they will know it. Huh? Even the dirty ones, okay, they will know the names are famous. I said, Al-Athar. She said to me, Al-Athar? And she is expert in it. Ah, you mean the channel of those shuyukh with all the time with this face? Wallah. The shuyukh with their face, uncle, frowned. Like serious. The one who don't smile. The channel of the shuyukh, they do not smile. Subhanallah. Can you go to that channel, please? I said, yes, it is. So, because they are explaining, you know, hadith, or they want to talk, and most of the deep knowledge, that's why these people, they don't look at it. Okay, they don't look at it. Of course, we tell the shuyukh sometimes, you know, sometimes when you are talking, the way that you're talking, sometimes you don't look at your face and reflection. You look like you are upset with something. Our Shaykh al-Albani, rahmatullah alayhi, yes, he was serious, but from now and here and there, he brings something and everybody laughs. And every time you listen, you want to listen and listen non-stop. You don't get bored. You don't get bored until you finish the whole thing. I would say that the people who listen to Shaykh al-Albani, they'll be addicted, Albani addicted. They will be, wallahi. You can't stop listening to him. Subhanallah. And he cracks jokes here and there, which is halal jokes. Now.
So, to summarize, Sheikh, did you say it is correct what you said to read?
Yes.
It is correct.
Yes, uncle.
Can I ask a second question?
Yes, uncle. But do you understand me, uncle? It's more important to know that Iman channel is not really a pure source. Jazakallah khair.
The brother is not very well. He's been coughing for a long time, and he's bought some cough mixture with
Cough?
2% alcohol.
Cough medicine. Oh, yes, coughing medicine.
So he's asking me, is that allowed to take?
SubhanAllah. I was asked this question yesterday.
Seasonal questions.
Was it in Masjid Kingston? Yes. Right. Uncle, I think I've asked this question here, but maybe you were not there, regarding the medicine which contains alcohol.
Yes.
Alcohol medicine, as a Muslim person, we should not make it. So if I'm a pharmacist, I should not make a medicine made of alcohol plus something. Even does not get you drunk, even it's a little alcohol. Because if you make it, you have to have what? Alcohol. Having alcohol is haram. But this medicine is being made for you. It's on the shelf. It's in the pharmacy. Am I allowed to drink it? Now, this depends upon the quantity of the alcohol inside that medicine. If too much of that medicine gets you drunk, then a little bit of that medicine is haram. So if you drink about 6-7 bottles, for example, or 10 bottles, if it makes you drunk, then 1 little spoon is haram. But it's going to kill you before you're going to try this experiment. It's going to kill you. You're going to die. So what we say that, number one, if there's an alternative, please use alternative. And there is, Doctor.
It's very hard to find.
Very hard to find alternative. So if it's very hard to alternative, we'll go to the second one. Look at the back of it. If it says it gives you drowsiness, if you don't be careful to drive, that means it gets you drunk. If it is not, then you look at the third issue. How much is the quantity of the alcohol? If it says 1%, don't go for it. No. Less than 1%, maybe. 0.05, for example. 0.05 means alcohol free. Little bit of quantity, but more. I think it's more than that, isn't it, Doctor? Much more.
2%.
You see, 2%. 2%, uncle, this is pure beer alcohol. You go to the shelves where the beer and Asda and all of that, you can see it. 2% alcohol, 4% alcohol. These are get you drunk, definitely. So it's haram.
One of the low ones is One of the low ones is 2%.
2% is the low ones, uncle. So I wonder why people lack the medicine of the coughing.
Covonia and there's 18-19%.
Huh? That's
checked,
pure alcohol.
Checked myself, I checked.
No.
12, 11, 18, 19.
If you go to a GP who's a Muslim, inshallah, he will prescribe for you, uncle, a medicine which is halal, inshallah. I'm sure there is an alternative. Mouthwash, it was really hard to find alcohol free. But now, plenty. Actually, the more you could say, those who are big providers, and well known, they started to do what? Alcohol free. Like Dental, like Aquafresh, like Sensodyne. Sensodyne is alcohol free. So all of these major companies, alcohol free. Before, hard to find one. So it's not true that alcohol is the only thing that you could really have a mouthwash or a coughing medicine. So you tell that brother, uncle, search for alternative. You can't find an alternative. Make sure that it is not 1% or above, less than that. And the doctor, he says it's impossible to find less than 1%. Then, uncle, if it is not the case, so please not to use that medicine. This is not really death and life here, isn't it? It's just coughing. Nah, tafadhali.
I just wanted to mention the teething gel, because the brothers would have children.
Teething gel.
Has 96 to 98% alcohol in it for the babies. Bonjela.
Pongella teeth for the children, because then to numb them. You see, we say as well, even if it's external use, you're not going to drink it. Like the mouthwash, you're not allowed to put it for the baby. Is there an alternative? Of course there is. What is the grumful? It's called grumful. The black nail, a little black nail. Clove. Clove. You know the clove? It makes you numb. You put it on the gum. I mean, we use it when we are, taking our teeth out. We used to chew it. Yeah. It really makes you numb.
Local anesthetic.
Local anesthetic. So there is plenty of alternatives. Clove is there.
Honey is also.
Honey as well? Yeah. Honey, I'm not mufti here. Say mufti here is for the medicine.
With cough, yes. I mean, they advocate honey and lemon for all these sort of operations.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, honey and lemon for the coffee.
But Bonjela really surprised me because 96% is basically alcohol, just a bit of
Ethanol.
something else.
Ethanol.
Yes, 96 and 98. Two of
They
them.
want the baby to get drunk.
And just sleep all night.
Yesterday we were talking about ice cream, uncle, because they were talking about the medicine which is mixed with alcohol. I brought 6 packets which were there on offer. Can't remember which supermarket, but they were Magnum, and there were 6. I remember 6 little ice creams in them. So I brought them without even looking at them because I usually buy them, but I didn't know there was a special limited edition. This one. So I brought them in the fridge. And then my wife, she said, are you bringing us something to get drunk? I said, what's happened? See, one of your daughters took one, and as soon as she had a bite, tastes different. Why is it different? They went back to the packet, and it says with kind of whiskey or something like this. Rum, whatever, I can't remember. For Christmas, yes. Because it was cheap. I think it's after Christmas they put less cheap. Allahul Musta'an. I couldn't even take them back. I had to throw them in the bin because they don't take them. They don't take them back. So after that, I started to look in everything. So buy clothes, I see ingredients of the clothes, in case there's alcohol. So everything is becoming now chaos with alcohol. Now,
No, you said it's okay, small percentage.
but by the way, alcoholic is vegetarians as well. You know that?
Yeah.
So when they say suitable for vegetarians, could be alcohol as well in it.
Yeah, can be.
Yes. So be careful for that. Vegetarians, no problem. Because the ice cream is vegetarian. But it was alcoholic. Tfadal, ya akhi.
Now, what you said now about the fatwa and alcohol, little percentage, can you apply it like last time you said, if I see pork gelatin, I will eat it?
No. Yes, pork gelatin, same thing, but gelatin is different. How? The alcohol is attached to the drunkenness state. So if the alcohol amount does not get you drunk, there's no problem. As for the gelatin, we believe the gelatin is not there anymore.
But this is haram and this is haram.
No, the gelatin is not in talking about. The gelatin is being reprocessed. It's like alcohol being made to wine. It's made to a grape juice. So you're changing the alcohol to grape juice. It's not the case. Alcohol says alcohol. But the other with gelatin is changed from pork meat to something which is called gelatin. Do you understand that? So it's not really the same thing. So whether it's too much quantity of it or a little bit quantity of it, it does not make a difference. But when we argue with those or debate with those people who say it's haram or something, we go one level down and say, well, okay, the gelatin stays the same. It does not change, the entity of it. It's the same thing. Meat, pork. How much of that quantity into that item? So this is impurity mixed with something which is pure. Like alcohol. Alcohol is different. Alcohol is pure, by the way. This is impurity mixed with pure. That pure thing, is it still pure or has it changed? Is the taste or the color or the smell? When you eat ice cream or sweet which is made of gelatin, regardless of the quantity, they don't tell you how much quantity of the gelatin is. Do you taste sweet with meat taste, cow taste, pig taste, rabbit taste, whatever it is? Or is it sweet still? Or is it still ice cream? Has anybody tasted meat in his ice cream? No. So the quantity of the gelatin, even if it does stay the same, because I'm going one level down just for the sake of debating. But for me, the gelatin, is not gelatin anymore. It's not, pork anymore. But I don't bring the word pork to my house. That's all. So if it's gelatin itself, no problem, beef gelatin. And not to say as well, I go one level down as well, a third level down. This beef, where does it come from? Christian country. And the beef, you know that, it's been slaughtered after it's been gunned, the gun to make it numb. The bullet, they doesn't kill it. And then they slaughter it. There's a gun that goes like inside and comes out. And the sheep is being stunned with this electric. It does not die. It does not die at all. By law, you're not allowed to die. They slaughter it. So I'm going to go on a low level. That gelatin is coming from sheep or cow made by Ahl Kitab, and it's to be halal. So whether this or this or the three knockouts, come on, this is halal.
Animal fat as well, when you say
So when I'm just say pork, don't mean it, because you don't want your children to look at the word pork. So my children look at the father, it's beef gelatin. They tell me, oh, pork gelatin, leave it. Khalas. Even though I teach them pork gelatin is not gelatin, but because of the word pork, I don't like that word. Because the last time they wanted me, can we have bacon crisps? What's that? But it's haram. It is not, I'm talking about the crisps itself. The word I'm teaching them. They want bacon. That means that I'm giving them the taste of the bacon in crisps. Do you understand me? I haven't given it. Subhanallah. So they're not having the haram, they're having the taste of it. So if it was, for example, was said, this crisps is not bacon, latent crisps. No problem, I'll eat it. But when you tell me it is bacon, you're telling me, so for the word, because the haram here is for the entailment of this. What is it going to entail? That my children are going to use to bacon, no problem. Whereas I want to teach my children bacon, pork, like that. Do you understand the word? So you as a father, don't go for the meaty crisps. You know, the meaty crisps. Go to the one what? It's got prawn. It's got the other ones, and I can't remember. There's one which is meaty red, yeah, crisp focus, and there's one what? Green, pink, and all of that. You'll find always, subhanallah, in the supermarket, the one which is meaty, is plenty of it there. Nobody's touching it. And the other one is out of stock. Subhanallah. Muslims, they take it. MashaAllah. So I would say, don't give you, I'm not saying it's haram or halal, I'm just talking about the word itself. Okay? Wallahi. And hopefully, inshallah, with this we'll finish. Anybody questions here?
Just one clarification.
Father.
If person slaughter an animal, non-believer, then they're not having kitab, and they say Bismillah, what would that be?
If he is a person who's not Ahl Kitab and slaughters the sheep and he says Bismillah al-Ali al-Azim and he mentions Allah's all his names, it's still haram. No matter what, even if he recites the Fatiha and the Baqarah, he's a kafir, not from Ahl Kitab, it does not make it halal. Khalas. Fadal.
Said we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of the names in our country, Abdus Subhan, is Subhan one of his
No,
names?
the name is not from the Subhanahu. It's not from the Subhan. Is not a name. Subhan is a verb. Now. Yes, Fadal.
My little one's 2 years old. She watches through the kids' YouTube, and sometimes she presses Peppa Pig, and it's
Huh?
Peppa Pig, the pig one. She's like, she sings along with it. It's like Mommy Pig.
Allahu al-Musta'an.
Very.
We have to be watching. Today I bought the same thing which is called the iPad to my child. She's watching these cartoons and these things.
Halloween.
And when I saw her, she said, she put it like she had it for me. She's only 6-7 years old. She had it for me. She knows she's doing something wrong. I want to watch with you. Allah al-Musta'an. Allah al-Musta'an. We have to watch out. Before this iPad, she used to like to watch, people embracing Islam. She likes that, which is good. People embracing Islam. So she puts Peace TV, who embrace Islam. She made me like that program. When I watched it, oh, very nice, mashallah. So, but when she started watching this Pinky or whatever, Peppa, Allah al-Musta'an. So the pig who is a dirty animal becomes what? Cuddly for their children. That's polluting their nature.
Daddy Pig, all that. Literally, the whole family members.
When somebody swear at him, you go say pig. You are a pig, and then my daddy's a pig. Allah, ya akhi, this is pollution. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.